Hello students, I hope you all are doing good and you all are safe. Well, it is very important that you maintain all the measures to keep yourself safe. Um, well, let's start today's lecture. Now, in the previous lectures, we have seen the development of seed, its structure, okay? In this lecture, we are going to start with the fruit. Well, so we are going to start from fruit, correct? Well, in the previous lecture, we have seen that the development of seed and fruit is simultaneous, right? We have also seen that fruit develops from ovary, right? So actually, fruit is a matured, or we say ripen ovary, okay? So after fertilization, the ovary matures or ripens into fruit. We have also seen that the ovary wall becomes the fruit wall or pericarp. Then we have seen the further bifurcation of pericarp, that is the epicarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. This we already have seen. Well, if we are talking about fruit, okay, let me tell you that the fruit is broadly divided into three parts, right? First one is called true fruit, okay, or eucarp, okay. This is true fruit or eucarp. The second type of fruit is known as false fruit, or we call it pseudocarp, okay. Now you know pseudo means false, carp means fruit, so pseudocarp is false fruit. And the third type of fruit is known as parthenocarpic fruits, okay. So broadly we have three types of fruit on the basis of from which floral part they develop, or on the basis of their development, right? The first one is called true fruit or eucarp. The second can be false or pseudocarp, and third one is parthenocarpic fruits, okay. Now let us see what are these. So when we are talking about true fruits, right, true fruits or eucarp. Now all the fruits that develops from ovary, okay, which develops from ovary are called true fruit or eucarp. Example like mango, guava, okay. So most of the fruits that you see like papaya, right, these all are what? True fruits, yeah, eucarp, okay. Let us see the false fruits, okay. What are false fruits? False fruits or pseudocarp. Well, if fruit develops from any floral part, okay, any floral part other than ovary, then we call it what? Pseudo carp or false fruit. For example, let's see apple, okay, or pear, right, or yeah, apple or pear, right. These are the fruits that develops from thalamus, right. They do not develop from ovary, they develops from thalamus, hence they are what? False fruits, okay. Let's see another example, okay. Now talking of another example, cashew nut, right. Cashew nut, that is we have seen earlier, cashew nut is nothing but kaju, okay. Now cashew nut develops from peduncle, okay. So all the fruits that do not develop from ovary are called false fruits. Example: apple, pear, cashew nut. There are other examples as well, like cucumber, gourd. These all are what? False fruits, because mostly they develop from thalamus. However, in case of gourd and cucumber, the edible part of the fruit also includes the ovary and ovule, because many times you also eat the seeds. Okay, very well. So the prominent example is apple, pear, cashew nut, etc. Okay, great. So that comes to the third one. Okay, what are parthenocarpic fruits? Parthenocarpic fruits. Well, see, if fruit develops without fertilization, okay, if fruit develops without fertilization, then we call such a fruit parthenocarpic fruits. Okay, and the phenomenon is known as parthenocarpy. Okay, or parthenogenesis. Okay, so the phenomena is called parthenogenesis. The fruit is called parthenocarpic fruit. What is the example? Example: banana or grapes, or maybe engineered seedless watermelons. Okay, so seedless watermelons. These all are what? These all are parthenocarpic fruits. Okay, now all the parthenocarpic fruits are seedless. Why it is so? Can you think of? Well, this is because these fruits develop without fertilization, and if there is no fertilization, then the ovule is not going to transform into seed, right? And hence such fruits will not be having fully developed seeds. Either they will not have seeds at all, or they will not have developed seeds. They will be having rudimentary underdeveloped seeds. Either case is possible. Okay, so what we have seen is, we have seen true fruits, we have seen the false fruits, and the parthenocarpic fruits. Okay, great. So this is about fruits. Apart from that, when we study about fruits, we also see that we classify the fruits on the basis of, how, or whether they develop from a single ovary, or they develops from multiple ovaries, or they develops from an inflorescence, right? And on that basis we classify the fruits as simple fruit, composite fruits, and aggregate fruits, right? So this is what we study in class 11th in the chapter of morphology, and we have already seen that. And further, these fruits are then classified like berries, itarios, drupe, pepo, and so on. Okay, so that part does not comes in the purview of this chapter. Okay, great. Well, so this was all about the fruit. One more thing I would like to add here is this word called pomology. Okay, now what is pomology? Study of fruits. So study of fruit is called pomology. याद रहेगा, जहां पे भी वर्ड पोमो आए इसका मतलब है it has something to do with fruits. Okay, and logy, study. So pomology. Very well. Well, so this was about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, so far what all we have seen in this chapter, in these lectures, was about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants, that is angiosperms. Okay, now do you think that the flowering plants only do sexual reproduction? Obviously, no. They also do asexual reproduction, right? So let us have a brief idea about asexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, we have seen so far the sexual reproduction in detail. Now we are going to have a glimpse of asexual reproduction, right? Now, when we are talking about asexual reproduction in flowering plants, let me tell you, it happens primarily by two methods. The first method is vegetative propagation. Okay, and you know this thing, vegetative propagation, you have been studying since standard 8 maybe, or maybe 7. You know, it is a type of reproduction, asexual reproduction, in which the reproduction of plants occur via the vegetative parts, that is via root, stem, leaf, okay, or you can say any other part other than flower and fruits. Correct? So if reproduction in plant is happening via stem or root or leaf, we call such a reproduction vegetative propagation, because these all are vegetative parts and flower is a reproductive part. Correct? Well, and we have already seen this in, again, the morphology chapter in class 11th, about different vegetative structures, their modifications, how they help in vegetative propagation. This already we have seen. Okay, so we are not going to redo it here in this chapter. Okay, if any of you have any kind of problem with that, we can discuss it in the doubt section, but we are not going to redo it here. It's not the part of this chapter. Okay, now apart from vegetative propagation, plants may also use another method of sexual reproduction, and this method is called agamospory. Is called agamospory. Now this is very important. Okay, this is very important. Now what it is, see, let us see in detail. Now, if we see this word agamospory, what we find is A. A means no. Gamo means gamete. Okay, and when we say spory, this word is coming for sperma or seed. Okay, so it is a type of reproduction, asexual reproduction, in which no gametes are involved. Okay, so it is a type of asexual reproduction in which seeds are developed without involvement of gametes. Okay, so if in a plant, if seed is formed without the involvement of gametes, then we call this process agamospory. Okay, now if the seed is being formed without gamete, it means there is no gamete formation, so there will be no meiosis. Yaad rakhiyega, there is no meiosis. Also, there will be no fertilization event. Especially, there will be no syngamy. Okay, so remember these things, that in this particular type of phenomena, that is agamospory, there is no meiosis, no fertilization. Okay, and still the seed is formed. Now, there are different ways of agamospory. Okay, what are they? Let's see. Now, the first type, or Yeah, first type of agamospory is diplospory. Is diplospory. Okay, diplospory. Now, what is it? See, it is a process in which the megaspore mother cell, MMC, remember, we have seen during megagametogenesis, yeah, megasporogenesis, right? So there was a megaspore mother cell, MMC, which was 2N, right? And this MMC in normal sexual reproduction undergoes the process of meiosis to form the megaspore, right? And that megaspore forms the embryo sac, correct? This was the normal event in sexual reproduction. But in case of diplospory, what happens? This MMC does not show meiosis. It does not show meiosis. So there is no meiosis, right? I'm putting a cross mark here. There is no meiosis. Directly, this MMC give rise to embryo sac. Okay, and in this embryo sac there is also egg cell. Now you tell me, if there is no meiosis and still this MMC is making embryo sac and egg cell, what will be its ploidy level? Can you think of? Well, all of you who are thinking it's to be 2N are correct. Okay, so this MMC directly forms the embryo sac and the egg cell, which are diploid. 2N, they are diploid, and then this egg cell starts to behave like zygote, and then it forms the embryo, and then it develops into seed. Can you understand? So in this particular method, that is diplospory, seed is formed. So in such plant which show diplospory, seed is formed, right? And seed is again here diploid. All the seeds are diploid, but here the egg cell is also diploid, correct? So directly seed is formed without involvement of gametes, because gamete तो यहाँ पे बना ही नहीं. There is no fertilization, there is no meiosis. समझ में आ रहा है? Correct? Now, here what is happening, see the egg cell and the embryo sac. Now, embryo sac and the egg cell, the embryo sac which comes from a spore, megaspore. So, there was a megaspore, right? And here this megaspore is formed by mitosis, not meiosis. So, the megaspore is also what? 2N, and that's why this whole uh, process is called, or the event is called diplospory, right? Diplospory. Why? See, because diplo for diploid, diplo for diploid, and spory for spore. So here the spore, or specifically the megaspore that is formed, is diploid. Why? Because it develops without meiosis from the megaspore mother cell, and that's why this whole process is called diplospory. Correct? Now you can see, without meiosis, without fertilization, seed is formed. This event is called, or this process called diplospory. Example where it is found: Parthenium. Okay. Okay. Parthenium. Okay. So diplospory is majorly found in Parthenium. So this is one type of agamospory. What is other? Let us see. The other type of agamospory is called adventive embryony. Adventive embryony, right? So it is a process in which an embryo is developed from the diploid nucellar cells or cells of integument. Okay, and such embryo is called adventive embryo. Okay, correct. So what is happening is the egg cell, okay, the egg cell has to form the zygote and then embryo. But in some cases, what happens is the cells of nucellus or the integument, they come inside the embryo sac and starts to develop as zygote and form the embryo. Okay, you can see here, let me draw it for you. So say for example, this was the ovule with this egg cell and this synergids, right, and central cell and these antipodal cells, correct. This is what we see, and there was this integument. This is what we mainly see in plants, correct. So this is the typical case. But what happens in some case, okay, now let me first describe the general case. In general, this egg cell has to develop into zygote and then embryo. These cells degenerate and this will develops into PEN, correct. But in some cases, what happens is this cells of either nucellus or this integument, they enter inside the embryo sac and starts to develop as an zygote to form embryo. Now this is called adventive embryo. Now this embryo is formed without meiosis, right? It develops directly from a diploid cell without meiosis and without fertilization, correct. Okay, now in most of the cases where this adventive embryony takes place, what we find is there is a true embryo and there is a adventive embryo, or there could be more than one adventive embryo, right? So the whole embryo sac has more than one embryo, right? More than one embryo, and hence this whole phenomena is called polyembryony. This is called polyembryony. Or we also call it adventive polyembryony. Okay, where do we find it? Okay, now classically the example is citrus. याद रखिएगा इसको. In case of citrus, we find this adventive polyembryony. Okay, what else we can find it in? Mango sometimes. Okay, we can find in case of Apunsia. Okay, that is a type of cactus. Okay, so I hope you understand the case of adventive embryony and polyembryony. Now let us see another case, right? The another case or another phenomena that happens in some plants is called apospory. Is called apospory. Okay. Now what is this? What is apospory? Uh, suppose or if the megaspore, or I should say the female gametophyte, okay, the gametophyte, okay, that is ovule, okay, or embryo sac, Okay, let me tell you one thing. Let me clear it. Apospory is the case in which the female gametophyte or the embryo sac of the ovule develops from either the cell of nucellus or integument. Okay, that is not from the megaspore mother cell. So if the female gametophyte develops from any cell other than megaspore mother cell, we call it apospory, right? We call it apospory. Okay, or we can say that development of gametophyte from sporophyte directly. Okay, now in such cases the gametophyte will be 2n, it will be diploid. Okay, so this is the case of apospory. Now apospory and the adventive embryony, they both may look similar to you, but there is a difference. The difference is, in case of adventive embryony, only the embryo is developed from nucellus or the integument, but in case of apospory, the entire embryo sac develops from any other cell other than megaspore mother cell. Okay, so this is apospory. Where do we find it? Example is important. Ranunculus. Okay, or you can say in the family of Ranunculaceae. Okay, so we find in case of Ranunculaceae family. Well, this whole process that we are studying under the topic of agamospory is also known as apomixis. Okay, and this is important because in NCERT they have written only apomixis. Okay, so apomixis. Now what is it? It is the same thing. That is development of seeds without fertilization or without involving gametes, right? And this process is called apomixis. A means no, O mixes, yani there is no mixing of gametes, right? And this is called apomixis, that is without fertilization formation of seed formation without fertilization. Okay, so what we have studied above is different types of apomixis, right? So whatever we have studied, that is apospory, or we have studied the adventive embryony, polyembryony, diplospory. These all are types of apomixis. Okay, these all are different types of apomixis, and in apomixis, therefore, there will be may or may not be gamete formation. There will be no fertilization. There will be no meiosis, no meiotic events. Okay, great. Now, what it's doing is, despite no involvement of gametes, there is seed formation, right? So there is seed formation. That is, if you see, because of seed formation, it looks like sexual reproduction, but in reality, it is an asexual reproduction. So apomixis is a kind of reproduction in which the asexual reproduction mimics the sexual reproduction, right? So it is a type of asexual reproduction that mimics sexual reproduction, right? So please do remember that Apomixis is actually agamospory, okay, that is formation of seed without fertilization, and it is kind of mimicking sexual reproduction by an asexual method of reproduction, and there could be multiple ways of doing it. That is, it can be apospory, it can be adventive embryony, it can be polyembryony, right? It can be diplospory. So just remember these terms. These are very important, especially from the competitive point of view, competitive exam point of view. NEET के लिए it is very important, right? From this particular chapter, the questions has been always asked from this particular section about apomixis, about parthenogenesis, about apospory, about adventive polyembryony. Okay, there has been always questions about the number of seeds found in oranges. Okay, now this is also being highlighted in NCERT. If you take orange, one piece of orange, you may find 1 to 4 or even 5 seeds, right? Ideally, there should be one seed, but no, what you'll find is maybe 4 to 5 seeds. Now, apart from saying one seed, rest all are what? Adventive embryony. That is the typical case of adventive polyembryony. ठीक है, हमेशा याद रखेंगे ये ऑरेंज का केस बहुत बार पूछा जाता है. In most of the citrus fruits, you find polyembryonic situation. Okay, the case of polyembryonic, and these all are adventive. So they are not actually developing from the egg cell, rather they are developing from the integument and the cellars. Okay, so this is all. Well.